The rhythmic hum of the refrigerated display cases was usually the loudest sound at the Last Stop Diner during my graveyard shifts, a comforting white noise that blended with the distant rumble of the highway. It was just past 2 a.m., and the last trucker had left an hour ago, leaving me alone in the familiar, slightly greasy warmth of the empty diner. My job was simple: clean, restock, and wait for the dawn. Tonight, however, the silence felt different, heavier, punctuated only by the occasional clink of plates as I organized them, a stark contrast to the lively chatter of the day shift. The rain, a steady patter against the large windows, added to the isolation, making the world outside seem even more remote. I was wiping down the counter, a task I'd done countless times, when a flicker of movement caught my eye in the parking lot. It wasn't a car pulling in, just a subtle shift in the shadows near the far end, beyond the reach of the diner's main lights. I paused, towel in hand, and peered through the rain-streaked glass. Nothing. I shrugged it off, attributing it to the reflective surface of a puddle, or perhaps a trick of my tired eyes. Still, an unfamiliar prickle of unease settled in the back of my neck, a sensation I rarely experienced in this quiet, predictable place.
A few minutes later, as I was sweeping near the kitchen entrance, a faint scraping sound drifted from the back storage room. It was distinct, like something heavy being dragged across the concrete floor. My heart gave a little jolt. I knew I was alone. The manager had locked up hours ago, and no deliveries were scheduled until morning. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet diner. Silence. I waited, straining my ears over the rain and the refrigerator's hum, but heard nothing more. My mind immediately went to the possibility of a stray animal, maybe a raccoon, but the sound had seemed too deliberate, too heavy for that. I cautiously approached the storage room door, which was slightly ajar, casting a sliver of darkness into the brightly lit kitchen. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open fully and flipped on the overhead light. The room was perfectly normal. Stacks of canned goods, bulk supplies, and cleaning products lined the shelves. No displaced items, no signs of an animal. Yet, the air felt strangely cold, and the faint smell of damp earth, unusual for an indoor space, hung faintly in the air. I shook my head, convinced I was just being jumpy after a long shift, and closed the door, returning to my sweeping with a renewed effort to dismiss the growing apprehension.
As I worked, the unsettling feeling persisted, like an invisible weight pressing down on me. I kept glancing towards the storage room door, half expecting it to open again. Then, a new sound, closer this time, broke through the monotonous rain. It was a soft, almost imperceptible click from the front of the diner, near the main entrance. I froze, my broom clattering against the floor. That was the sound of the deadbolt, a sound I knew intimately from locking up myself. Had I forgotten to lock it? No, the manager always did it. I slowly moved towards the counter, my eyes fixed on the front door. The rain continued its steady drumming, but now it seemed to amplify the silence inside. My gaze drifted to the small decorative bell above the door that usually chimed when customers entered. It was swaying, just barely, as if someone had just passed beneath it. A chill, far colder than the damp air, traced its way down my spine. Someone was in here, and they hadn't come through the main door moments ago. My heart pounded against my ribs. I instinctively reached for my phone, but it was in my apron pocket, which was still hanging by the kitchen. The kitchen. My only escape route was the back door, but that meant crossing the open expanse of the diner, potentially passing whoever or whatever was now lurking in the shadows. I strained my eyes, trying to pierce the dimly lit corners of the dining area, but saw nothing but the distorted reflections of the neon signs outside. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe. Then a low, guttural growl echoed from the darkest part of the diner, near the booths by the far wall. It wasn't human, not quite, but it certainly wasn't animal either. It was a sound of pure menace, thick with intent. My blood ran cold, fear paralyzing me for a split second. The growl was followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy, dragging footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving towards me. I could barely breathe, my vision tunneling to that single terrifying sound. Adrenaline surged through me. My mind screamed for escape. I spun around, abandoning the counter, and bolted for the kitchen, my feet slapping loudly on the tiled floor. I fumbled frantically with the deadbolt on the back door, my fingers clumsy with terror. The growling intensified behind me, closer now, a chilling promise of what awaited if I didn't get out. With a desperate shove, the door finally burst open, and I stumbled out into the cold, pouring rain, not daring to look back. I ran, blindly, through the downpour, until I reached the highway. My breath hitched in my throat as I finally pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my voice shaking uncontrollably as I tried to explain what had happened. The police arrived quickly, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness, but after a thorough search of the last stop, they found nothing. No forced entry, no signs of anyone, just the quiet, empty diner, seemingly undisturbed. They suggested it might have been my imagination, the isolation playing tricks on me. But the memory of that growl and those dragging footsteps still haunts me, making every shadow a potential threat, and the sound of rain a prelude to terror.